The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
He's come out of his cave.
You're listening to the Knuckle Draggers extravaganza on Z Digital if you're listening to this live, or if you joined us through the magic of the internet through Cave Dweller Music. Good evening to you, or good day. I suppose it doesn't really matter what time of the day it is. But we're going to be having a chat to a gent who runs what has quickly become one of my favorite labels. If you looked at my top 10 for 2022, you would notice Woe Warden, Daedric Armor, and Malignant Aura are all on that list. And what they have in common is they come out through the fantastic Bitter Loss Records. So this has been something that I've been very excited about. And we are joined by Rob from Bitter Loss Records. First and foremost, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure and good to chat to you.
I'm very excited. Like I said there, 3 of the albums in my top 10. It ended up being a top 11 on a couple of sites because I couldn't actually count to 10. But yeah, Woe Warden, Malignant Aura, and Daedric Armor are all fantastic records. And seeing the through link for all of them just got me really excited.
Yeah, look, it's I think one thing that we're not starved for in Australia is talent and good music. So look, it's an honour to be able to work with the bands that you mentioned and the entire roster, and you know it's not lost on me, but for them to put their faith for me to handle, you know, what is a huge investment for every band is it's really humbling.
And the one thing that really tipped me off for how well you work with these bands, and I promise I'm not going to spend the next half an hour blowing hot smoke up your ass, which I'm sure that I could do to no end. But I was having a chat to Jono and Chris from Malignant Aura, and you flew, and for the people that don't know, Bitter Loss Records is Perth-based. You flew to Brisbane to see them on their very first show at the Bearded Lady, and that commitment and that respect that you show the bands, I was like, this dude knows what up. This label knows what's going on.
Yeah, thanks. And I mean, you know, it's being a fan of the music as well. So it's, you know, it's pretty cool that was their first show, and having spent sort of the last 6 to 8 months behind the scenes with the guys, it was fantastic to get up there. And it's something that I've tried to make a point of doing. I haven't been able to attend the launch of every release that we've done, but you know, I'm lucky that a good portion of the roster is based here in Perth, but I've also flown to Sydney for the Plague launch. I had plans to be in Adelaide for the launch of Rumen Ad Mortem for their record in April. And yeah, look, it's something that I get, you know, an immense amount of pleasure from. It's as a lover of the music, it's, you know, seeing these guys live after listening to them through pre-production and mastering and everything, it's awesome.
And if my memory serves me correct, the Plague, who you just mentioned there, they were one of, if not the first band that actually signed on to Bitter Loss Records.
They were the first, yeah. So I spoke to them back in December of 2020.
The Plague years.
They're really the reason. Yeah, look, they're really the reason that Bitter Loss as a label exists, and you know what you see today. So I was doing a small distro, which was something born out of you know, COVID and isolation, and I thought I could get a few cool records and things in, and they asked me if I was interested in releasing them. So they had a deal with a US label that was put on pause due to COVID-related issues, and they'd already been sitting on the music for about 18 months, I believe. And I said, well, why the hell not? Let's give it a crack. 18 months later, and we're up to our 40th release. So a lot of what we're doing comes from the a simple phone call that I had with Shane from the Plague.
You're certainly making up for lost time, though. 40 releases in 18 months it's a massive effort.
Yeah, look, I didn't have too many grey hairs prior to 2020, and look, it hasn't been. Look, the time has been fraught with some issues. I mean, everyone that follows the bands and the labels know that from time to time we're impacted by production delays, which, something I take extremely personal and something I really hate having to deal with. When you put your faith in a third party to meet schedules, and you've done everything right in regards to submissions and design and art, and then something doesn't happen, it does get quite frustrating. But overall, I think we've done extremely well. And look, I think the volume or the amount of releases we've done, it comes back to my early comment that Australia is just so chock-a-block full of amazing bands. And what's fast become my motivation for continuing to do this is to ensure that those bands get the recognition that they deserve.
Touching on those production issues, it can also put you in a bit of an awkward position, you being the middleman between the band who have put so much time and effort into the music and this printing press who, if what's an example? Say we'll throw the name Parkway. Like if Parkway Drive have a new album out and they've got 5,000 presses that they want done, and so bands from your label will get knocked back. It's a bit of an awkward position for you being the middleman between the two.
It is. We're sort of the unseen party that sort of we're just facilitators. We take a product from a band and we try and get it out to as many people as we can via physical means and also digital. But I think you've really touched on the crux of the cause of a lot of these production delays. So the popularity of the analog formats has just gone through the roof, and unfortunately, small independents like myself and all of my peers that are sort of underground labels, we're the ones that sort of suffer along the way. And it's quite interesting because when these formats are not popular, it's the underground scenes, the metal, punk, hardcore, and even hip hop and other things that really keep this ticking over. But as soon as it's popular, we're kind of put to the side.
It is a weird thing, and you hit on it perfectly there. In the downtimes, it's those people who really want the physical records, the sort of tangible things that they can relate to the band, that keep the whole pressing thing going. But when it swings back into being really popular, because there's not such a high demand, the demand's still there. It's just been bumped down a couple of notches because a bigger band or a more well-known or well-established band have come through and gone, oh, you know what? Let's get on to this vinyl business.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we've done probably 15 or 20 releases on vinyl, and if you add up all of those numbers from each of those presses, it probably doesn't amount to a single press of a larger band. So the fact of the matter is that we're extremely small fish in a large profitable pond, I guess you could say, and we have to take our medicine and navigate it the best we can. And we have to change how we do things, and one of the things that I've decided to do to offset any of the potential delays, and I'm experiencing delays on all vinyl format at the moment, is that we'll be unable to offer pre-sale anymore. So I just don't feel comfortable taking someone's money under a pre-sale if we can't meet the agreed date that we said that would come out. So there'll be some changes to the way that we operate, and I know that I'm not alone in trying to review what we do.
Speaking of changes, how did you find the change from a distro and a web store that you mentioned there to the label? Because by the sounds of it, it was more or less the plague of like, this thing with this US label's not working out. And you sort of went, well, I've got somewhat of an infrastructure here to be able to pick you guys up and then help put them out.
Oh, look, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing.
That's the best way to do it.
Let's not pretend as good as it looks from the outside right now. Even still, I'm learning on every release. So it's been a pretty interesting journey. And look, the distro was only, around for maybe 2 or 3 months. So it was an extremely quick transition where we went from, selling a few records online to the development of the online web store to, signing bands, having Bandcamp, establishing distribution networks, production, PR, all sorts of stuff, logistics. It's a wild ball game, and I think if I once heard a comment from someone many years ago, and they said, if you really hate someone, encourage them to start a record label.
And you've touched on this before, but definitely a source of grey hairs for you by the sounds of that. Yeah,
look, but hey, you can only do what you do. It comes back to this is not an exercise in profitability. I mean, I work full time. My partner works full time. We've got a small child, and this is really just I guess a hobby of sorts. It's an all-consuming hobby, but it comes from a place of look, 80% of the time it's pure joy. It really is. I mean, the feedback that we get, the excitement from bands when they see a quality physical product, my personal, feelings when, I see that I've helped contribute to maybe, getting a band out there. That's what I really love. I've been listening to this music since the early 90s, and it's great to be a part of this no matter what. And I consider myself extremely fortunate that I do get to work with these absolutely amazing bands and have and create these great relationships not only here in Australia but across the world.
On the topic of distros all throughout the world, there's a couple of ties to a few distros in Europe and the US, if I'm not mistaken. Who have you got lined up overseas?
Well, look, the network's pretty extensive. I mean, my peer labels across, both here and overseas, it's one of the major ways to get the music out there and still keep costs quite low. By trading with suppliers, that means labels, you can get your albums across to them, and then you get their products over here. So it helps you recover some of your costs as well, which is great, but only up to a point because it's not a dedicated network. Without the distros and the other labels that I trade with, Bitter Loss really wouldn't be able to come close to recovery costs, which is, a challenge at the best of times. But one limitation that we do have as things grow is that, the people that are exposed to the bands and labels grow, and they might not necessarily have access to, some of these people that are offering our stuff overseas. So we're trying to establish more permanent and fixed distribution through some larger means. We'll still continue to trade with the labels that make the music like us, but I think for an Australian label to be able to get the the music out there and do the bands justice, we probably need to invest a little bit more.
I like that. So as soon as you said trade, all I just remember is being a kid and being at lunchtime on the playground. You know, you're trading footy cards, you're trading Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff like that. And the fact that you were like, oh yeah, we trade records with other labels. I just have this image of my mind of a whole bunch of metal guys sitting around with vinyls being like, I'll give you a couple of my, I'll give you a couple of my Malignant Auras for your Lamp of Murmur and stuff like that.
Well, it's not far from that. Everyone's got their list of what's available, and there's a universal point system, I guess you could say, where records are worth certain points, double LPs, digipack CDs, they're all pretty much worth these fixed points values. So you create your product availability lists, you've got your point values, and you just send it on email. And the other labels will say, hey, I want 8 Malignant Auras, I want 5 Crypt Crawlers, blah blah blah, and then you just look for the equivalent on their list, and you post yours, they post theirs, and hopefully DHL or Australia Post doesn't stuff things up, and everyone's happy.
But like failing that, or the worst case scenario is it getting damaged in the post just sounds like an absolute nightmare. I think I messaged this to you when we were trying to organise this interview, but I went and saw Woe Warden and Malignant Aura at Misdemeanor, and I caught up with John, and I was like, mate, how'd you go? How was the flight? And he just looked at me, he's like, they fucking broke one of our guitars. And I can imagine that. And with vinyls, like vinyls are fantastic, but gee, they're flimsy at the best of times. So there'd be nothing more heartbreaking for you being like, all right, I've ordered all these records. We've just done a trade. Hopefully it's all square, and you get here and the records are warped or cracked or chipped.
Look, it's being such a small network and a small scene globally, you're only as good as your last package. So I learned pretty quick that if you don't package your stuff the right way, then you probably won't get the opportunity to trade again. So, I reached out to a few people that I knew and said, hey, I'm going to start sending out some bulk stuff. What do you recommend? And some of the people that I traded with said, look, I've been doing this for years. Why don't you wait until my package arrives, and then you can see how I've done it, and then you can send yours to me. So it was, it was really cool that we learnt pretty quick how to hopefully do things the right way and ensure that the damage, if any, is minimal at worst.
I really like that, though. Guys that have been doing it for a long time, you hit them up for advice, and they were like, don't worry, man. Like, I'm going to send you some stuff. You have a look at it and then replicate it if you can. But it seems like a pretty supportive collection and network of distros, labels, and stores that sort of run this underground trade that, people like me wouldn't normally think about.
It's amazing. And look, besides, brick and mortar stores, most of the online, distros and things that anyone would buy their product from Australia. I mean, a good portion of it is probably trade. A lot of, like Brewing Emperor and myself and other Australian labels, that's how we do, a lot of our business. And I think you're spot on. It is such a small network of people, and what is fantastic is there's no competition. It's not, we're not major labels here. We're all small. We're doing it for the right reasons, and we're doing it for the growth and sustainability of the music that we love and brings us joy. And if you're not in it for the right reasons, I think you'll be found out pretty quick.
I can imagine that a lot of these places would have impeccable bullshit detectors.
Yeah. Look, I've learned the hard way on a couple as well. Some of my early trades I got ripped off by some contemporaries overseas, and that's just, I guess, part of the game. It's a shame, but in all walks of life, there's people that will try and take advantage of others. So to sort of get to be put under the wing of some people, some really great labels, and even over here, some of my friends that have done some things in the past that might not still be going, they really gave me some fantastic advice in regards to who are the good people to deal with. It's really set me up. Really set me up well.
I was going to ask, is there sort of like a blacklist system, or what happens when a trade doesn't go as well as it should? But it sounds like it is pretty self-policing. Yeah,
look, there's people that I won't deal with, and look, I might be on some other people's list. I don't know, but I think my worst trait is that it takes me forever to reply to people. So otherwise, everything's pretty smooth. And look, a couple of years, probably hundreds and hundreds of trades. There's only one or two that it's probably only one or two that I wouldn't deal with, and maybe one or two that I would need a couple more assurances. But overall, the percentage, it's just fantastic, and it's so good, and it's so refreshing, and there's so much trust out there, because you could be sending thousands of dollars worth of product over to people that you've never met physically, and there is just that level of trust. And it comes back to that we are one scene, and we're all here for each other.
I'm sure somewhere someone's mum has overheard this, or just has that mum sense of going, these boys are talking to strangers on the internet, and they're sending them thousands of dollars worth of stuff. We taught them better than this.
Well, look, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, that's how we got most of our records. I mean, I was getting my stuff in the sort of 94 onwards from mail order catalogues from, there's a one in Australia called Spiral Objective out of Adelaide. Greg was his name, and he had an amazing volume and range of records, and really sort of shaped a lot of people's musical tastes. But that's just how it was. We used to send cash in the mail. Before I moved to Perth, I remember sending money to a Perth band in the mail out of an ad that was in Hot Metal, probably 93, 94 for a dubbed VHS. And, but that's how it is. If you don't deliver, or if you do rip someone off, you found out pretty quick. And, look, I won't say that I'm not exempt from having issues and missing people's shipments and all that sort of stuff. But, what I always try and do is to ensure that whatever mistakes are made, we make up for the best we can.
Well, as soon as you mentioned Spiral Objective, I was like, that's something that I got to have a look at. And unfortunately, the first story was about he lost his whole record collection to a fire in 2013.
Some years ago. So,
that would have been heartbreaking.
Yeah, look, Greg does a radio show called Filler. I don't know if it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday nights. Plays a lot of punk and hardcore and underground stuff, and he's been doing it for God knows how many years now. But that type of motivation is truly inspiring.
That is rough. One of the motivations that I was listening to an interview you did, maybe was it last year, that one of the big motivations for Bitter Loss was you wanting to repay the heavy music scene that's given you so much. How are you feeling as though you're traveling on that journey, or is it going to be never fulfilled?
Yeah, probably never. I mean,
I had a feeling that'd be the case.
Yeah, look, how do you square the ledger for something that's defined pretty much who you are. I mean, I'm 45 years old. I'm working with a band who has a member that I first saw on stage in probably '94. I mean, so we're talking
I was
nearly
going to
30
say, how
years.
excited are you to reprint that Aftermath record?
Well, look, that hasn't really been agreed as yet. There were some early discussions, but I was more referring to Matt Skitz from Luma, who plays drums in Lumen Ad Mortem. So I saw him on stage with Damaged when they supported Cannibal Corpse on the Bleeding Tour at the Phoenician Club in Sydney with some other great bands like Aftermath were there. And there was a two-show. There was an all ages and an overs, and the cream of the crop at the time. And a lot of those bands were on Warhead Records, or they were affiliated with Modern Invasion, and I think this is what I'm trying to aspire to be. That I really want to leave or be part of these Australian bands as legacy, and I'll keep going back to it, and I'll spruik it, and probably until my last breath. But Australia can match it with the best in the world, and I hope that people will recognise that and look in their backyards before they look overseas for good music.
What is the normal process for you when you get started talking to a band about putting out the release? Because like I said, 3 fantastic records that came out this year, and there were more if I gave more time to listen to them. The roster for this year was insane, but talking to Malignant Aura, Woe Warden, and Daedric Armor, they have said nothing but positive things about the process of getting everything sorted with you. What is your approach to the putting out a record process?
Look, first and foremost, I think we'll talk about intent, and I think the intent is to be as collaborative and as transparent as possible. So, it's a true partnership where both parties are investing significant amounts of time and money into something. So what you want is for the product to succeed. I mean, for the album to do well. My goal is to break even, and I'm sure that, I don't want to speak for too many bands, but I'm sure their reach is part of theirs as well. But kicking off a process, there's 2 ways I will be approached. So we have an outlined thing on our website that tells people how they can submit, expressions of interest or their demo or something like that. Or the other way is if I'm just sort of cruising around Bandcamp or YouTube or something, which I'm known to do as not a great sleeper, I'll come across something and I might approach them and ask them if they've got any plans to release anything. I think the latter is maybe a little bit. I don't do that a great deal because the sheer volume of stuff coming through is just it's too much. And look, I've had to close the books for this year already, so we won't be really accepting. We will still be announcing several more releases, or considerable amount of releases, but we probably won't be adding anyone new to the roster until next year. But we've probably got another 15 or 18 releases for 2023 already. But so the bands will reach out. The first thing I want to do is to understand a little bit about them. I only want to work with people that I think share the philosophy that I have in regards to music. There's no one's getting rich in this, so it's got to come from a position of passion, and that they really really enjoy what they do. And the main thing is I like the music, and if I think that I would buy the music myself as a fan, then that's pretty much a tick from me. So
That's a good way to approach it. And being a fan of the music as well definitely helps. It sort of, it's a good way of phrasing it.
yeah,
You
so
feel
look,
you feel more confident in what you're doing if you're a big fan of the music.
well, look, it's great, but you also don't want to spend, thousands of dollars for a record that only you're going to like as well. So you do need to think about what is going to, not what's going to sell, but what can you market properly. I mean, a lot of bands are relatively unknown, and I think one thing that we do well with the label is we've got a good good PR partnership, and we're very active across social medias, which I don't really like, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. And we just try and keep up to speed and do as much as we can and stay relevant and keep all the bands active in regards to that, and work with our trade partners consistently. And it's it's not easy at times, and I think we do get caught up in a few other areas of the business which are frustrating. But at the end of the day, it comes back to are they good people? Do you want to spend the next 6 months working with them intensively, taking feedback, giving criticism back as well on certain aspects, so you've got to make sure that you can work with people that you like the music, and they're motivated to do their part.
So you've said that everything, by the sounds of it, the submissions and everything's wrapped up and planned out ahead for 2023. You mentioned that Lumen Ad Mortem record.
Yep.
Has the new Vorzor been released yet, or is that on the precipice?
Yeah, so Lumen Ad Mortem was released yesterday. So
that's going to get a solid play on the show. So if anyone's made it, if anyone's listening on Cave Dweller Music, keep your eyes and ears peeled to the Knuckle Drags extravaganza, because I can promise you're going to be hearing a lot of that record.
Yeah, it's been extremely well received, and I think, and rightly so. I mean, the Aaron, Greg, and Matt have done an absolutely amazing job, visually and sonically as well. It's something they've put an extreme amount of time and effort into. It's and they've really come out good. But Varsor, we will. That's due. It's actually due today, so we'll probably be. We're going to do that in a few stages. So we'll be doing a digital release later this evening. So that'll be the 28th of April, of January, sorry. And then we'll be doing, we've got some premiere plans, and then the physical products coming after that. So there's a lot of strategy behind, the schedule as well. It's been an extremely busy first few weeks of the year, especially we've had Ashen, their new album Ritual of Ash. It was released on January the 13th, the same day as Hormagaunt, In the Flesh, death metal band from Melbourne, and then Lumen and Varsor, and also, not to forget, Idle Ruin from up your way in Brizzy. That
had a pretty banging release show from everything that I've seen about it. Friends of the show, Regular Gonzalez. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to sit down and listen to it yet, but Valley Inferno was one of the ones that stuck with me. And if people are listening and thinking, oh man, all this media stuff and all this advertising, it sounds really hard. I no joke found out about Idle Ruin because I was walking through South Bank and saw their sticker on a light pole. Like that is proper old school band advertising right there.
Yeah, Liam, who's the drummer and singer, he's pretty red hot when it comes to that. He also did the layout for the album as well. And look, that's the other part of all this, right? Is that this is this is all pretty much DIY stuff. A lot of the bands do their own layouts. They do their own production. There's aspects that they might farm out, like mastering and maybe getting some original artwork in, but a lot of this stuff is all done in-house. I do most of the promo flyers and the YouTube videos and all that sort of stuff. It's we try and do as much as we can, and because the margins are so low, and we just can't afford to get other people to do stuff. It's very DIY, back to the early punk days.
And I like that approach as well. You're sort of giving, basically, and you would have heard horror stories about this with various bands, but they sign with a label, and then the label basically controls, you need to use this photo, you need to use this for the album cover. Everyone that I've spoken to, and you hit it perfectly on the head there, that these bands, they'll pay for their own album cover. They might do it themselves in a couple of cases, and you're there as the final thing to go, all right, we've done all of the, writing, recording, yada, yada, yada. And then you're there, you're the one that's actually bringing it forward to the masses.
Look, it's extremely collaborative, and I think that's what I love about it. And I certainly won't say that every release has gone smoothly, either behind the scenes or once it's been released. But I think one thing that each release does have is it has that passion behind it, and also the trust in all parties. And it's fantastic to see the work that goes into this stuff. And talking about Ash, and they invited me in to even hear the demo tracks of before they even went to record Ritual of Ash. So to be part of that process, and to be able to be asked for feedback along the way, it's I use the word in the intro, but it's extremely humbling, and it's not lost on me how fortunate I am to be as ingrained in this as I am.
And that's more or less everything that I had lined up that I wanted to ask you. But I do have one more question, and mainly this because I was listening to Entombed today. But did you take the name for the record label from an Entombed song?
Yes, I did.
Because I was like, just went back and was listening to it. Then I was kind of like, hold on a sec. This song's called Bitter Loss. I'm having a chat to Rob tonight. I wonder.
Yeah. So, spot on. Look, in terms of a very important band for me, and I think there was when I was trying to come up, and look, I'm not an overly creative person, hence why I sit more behind the scenes on these things. It's look, I was like, geez, I'll just grab a few song names here, and we'll see what works well. And I think Bitter Loss works extremely well. I think it's a good representation of the label itself. And hey, it's Entombed song, and how can you go wrong? How can you go wrong with that?
You really can't. If there was one band that you could work with and collaborate with to release an album, be it a current one or one from the past, what would be your go-to? Who would you want to release an album for?
Look, that is an extremely good question, and I doubt that I could answer that without extending this for another 45 minutes. But look, I'll stick to the Australian theme, and I might go with two if I could. I'll be a little bit cheeky there, but one is one of my all-time favourite bands of any genre. I know several members extremely well, and I'm a bit of a fanboy. But Mind Snare is they're
Fantastic band.
one of my all-time favourite bands. I think Australian or international. Been following them since since Under Fire. So it's to work with them would be absolutely amazing. They do most of their stuff with another good friend of mine, Graham, at Resist Records. So I doubt I'll ever have that opportunity, but if they ever want to, I will part the sea to make that happen. And the other one, and I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day about this, and because I'd reached out to them some years ago, but they sort of weren't ready, and I maybe I need to touch base with them again. But there's a band from regional New South Wales called Manticore, which I think really deserve a re-release of some of their stuff. So I've got to add one more, right?
By all means.
Sorry, Alchemist. If there was a re-release of Lunosphere by Alchemist, then I'd pay to see that happen.
Again, thank you so much for taking some time out and having a chat to us. If people, you said that everything was sort of locked in and sorted for 2023, but if people did want to get in touch with you, check out some of the stuff that has been put out from Bitter Loss Records, where would they go about doing so?
Look, our main two sort of areas, we've got the dedicated web store, which is at bitterlossrecords.com, and then our Bandcamp, where we do a fair bit of stuff there. So just search Bitter Loss Records on Bandcamp. Most of the roster's there. You can listen and purchase from there as well. I think the other thing is our YouTube is starting to go, pretty well, and we put full streams up there for free of all releases once they're out and about. And support your local scene. I mean, I can't say that enough. Is that unlike other areas of the world, and we'll focus on North America and Europe, that it's very, very rare for an Australian band to be able to make any money out of playing music. So any support that anyone can give them, be it buying a physical product, any merch, going to a show, you not only get to see the bands face to face and to meet the members directly, shake their hand and get something signed if that's your bag, but it's you really don't know how far that goes when it comes to touring, putting out new releases, and just how much it means to them personally as well that someone's taking the time to come and check them out. So look in your own backyard, where we've got some of the best bands in the world, and I can say that from true experience.